The price of Tim Allen's home in the Hollywood Hills was thought to be very high because he is a famous person. But as potential buyers and real estate agents got a better look, some disturbing facts started to surface. The home improvement star had hidden rooms, had upgrades that weren't open to the public, and had financial red flags. This was not at all what fans thought they saw. It became clear that what they found at Tim Allen's house wasn't just strange, it was scary as more and more people arrived to see what was going on. The Hollywood Hills home of Tim Allen stood out from the rest. It was famous and made people look twice. It was a strange castle high above Los Angeles. People who went to the big house could see beautiful views of the canyon and the city skyline, but there was a scary truth behind the fancy front. For years, people had been speculating about Allen's property. People thought it was a beautiful piece of building, a haven that combined mid-century modern style with a sense of the country. The walls of the house were made of smooth wood and had big windows that went from floor to ceiling. The master suite was as fancy as the world's most expensive hotel rooms. Guests often said it was very quiet and felt like something was being kept secret on purpose, even though the house looked warm and friendly. It might have been the house's huge size or the way it was set up, with rooms and halls that didn't always seem to connect properly. Or it could have been that only close friends and employees who had been there for a long time were allowed through certain doors. A maid who had worked at the estate for over 10 years said she had never been to some parts of the house, even though she had cleaned almost every inch of it. She told me later that it wasn't just that the doors were locked, you also got the feeling that you shouldn't have asked what was behind them. Even people who work in real estate were not sure what to do. Some of the strangest homes in the Hollywood Hills were on Allen's land. There were repairs that were laid, plans for the building that were changed at the last minute, and property records that were not clear at all. Some people said that the people who owned the land before had their own secrets, like stories about lost caves, rooms, and compartments that go back decades. Their story got longer until Allen decided to sell the house. Small problems began to show up as the real estate agents and possible owners looked around the house. It looked like some rooms were bigger on paper than they were in real life, and some didn't have clear openings. When hired to do a regular check, a skilled worker clearly left the property shaken. When asked for more details, all he said was, "That place doesn't feel right. A castle for the king or a place to hide?" The house Tim Allen owned in the Hollywood Hills looked like something most people could only dream of. There was enough space for big Hollywood parties, and the floor plan was open. The finishes were smooth and high-end. Even though the ceilings were high and the decorations were in the right places, something didn't seem right. Allen was known for years as a private guy who hardly ever talked about his private life in public. It was normal for famous people to keep things secret, but Allen went above and beyond what was expected. Even people who were close to Allen could tell that he had some strangely strict rules about his house. People couldn't go into some parts of the house, and the security was about the same as in government offices. Multiple levels of biometric entry, reinforced walls in places that didn't seem to need them, and video surveillance of the whole property weren't just normal safety steps for a famous person, they were signs of something more. One interesting thing was the basement, or more accurately, what was under it. The official plans for the house showed a small lower level for storage and services, but something didn't look right. Builders who had worked on other Hollywood homes told Allen that his house's square footage didn't match its floor space. The first people to notice something was wrong were people who work in real estate. One buyer's agent did their study on the house by asking for a standard basement scan for homes this size. Standard foundation plan wasn't shown by the scan, though. It showed something else instead, an empty space under the house that wasn't on any public records. Reps for Allen said it was just a private storage space, and the star wasn't required to talk about it when they were asked. But that answer wasn't good enough for the people who were really interested in the sale. Some people thought that Allen was hiding something. Was this just an old part of the house that had been forgotten? Someone who might have bought something, looked upset, and left a tour in the middle? They said, "I don't know what's in that house, but I don't want to find out." What made things scarier was that Allen's best friends said he never talked about the estate. That's not like Allen at all. He didn't talk about his fancy home like other famous people did. A former security guard who was hired to watch over the property at night may have been the first person to notice something was wrong. Things got worse as the sale went on. In a later comment, he said, "I don't know what was in there, but I can tell you this, Tim Allen never wanted anyone to find it. Someone had to find the truth, and when they did, it changed everything." The garage that held more than cars. Once you saw Tim Allen's garage, you'd think it belonged to a famous star who loves cars. It was clean and full of old cars, muscle cars, and rare motorcycles. Allen had a large collection of hot rods and old cars that he talked about in interviews. This showed how much he loved fixing them up and taking care of them. But people who had been inside the garage thought something wasn't quite right. One reason was that the property records said the place wasn't big enough for what they said it was. At first glance, it looked like a clean and well-stocked garage. But as people looked more closely, they noticed some small issues with the way it was set up. Following the deal, a real estate agent shared, "I've been to a lot of celebrity garages before this one. It felt different. Some spots didn't look like they were meant for cars or were just there to store them. This house had a garage pit, which is great for mechanics because they can work on cars from below." This was the biggest red sign. Most of the time, these pits are pretty simple structures, but Allen's was much deeper than it needed to be and made of materials that would last a lot longer than what is needed for normal car repair. And it was found by a contractor who was paid to check the home's foundation before it was sold. He pushed for more research to be done, but Allen's team stopped all research right away. The worker said, "This is scary." They had no reason to stop the inspection unless they didn't want us to see something. Then there were the things that were lost and found in the garage. People knew Allen for his car collection, but some guests saw that some important cars were missing. The cars he used to show off in public are no longer there. There was no proof that they had been sold, but some people thought that. Even worse was a stack of faded boxes in a corner that only had barcodes on them. Very careful real estate helpers saw old VHS tapes, handwritten notes, and what looked like old secret papers inside an open one. Allen did everything he could to keep people out of his shed. Who or what did he keep there? No one knew about the scary room. There were questions in the garage, but the panic room made them even worse. A lot of well-known homes have safe rooms, which are safe places to keep people safe in case of an emergency. Almost all of these homes have some kind of security system. The escape room Allen made was unique, though, because he did everything he could to hide it. At first, not even the real estate agents in charge of the sale knew about the room. One of the builders was looking at the house's plan when he saw a blank spot. It wasn't clear how to get to this part of the house, and it wasn't used for anything. The builder said it was strange. The measurements showed that technically a whole part of the house wasn't there. The police put together what they thought they saw by using structure scans and old building permits. Most panic rooms are built to keep people safe from threats from outside. However, Allen's escape room looked like it was made for something else. It wasn't just to keep someone safe, it was also to keep something or someone inside. People who were interested in buying the house asked to see every part of it before committing to the sale. The people who worked for Allen didn't answer. Soon after that, a group was sent to the house to look into things privately. When they got there, the room was locked. The building's empty room that looked like a secret room was now full. The walls were made stronger, and the way in had been blocked off for good. There was no trace of it left. A real estate agent who had seen the first plans before they were changed was not sure what to do next. I saw that. Everyone was wondering what was in that panic room before it was locked up. There was a gap there. Something was in that room, but now it's gone. There were hidden papers, and an investigation was carried out. After the scary things found in the garage and the strange way the panic room closed, the attention turned to something else strange. An old plain filing cabinet that was hidden in a part of the house that wasn't used very often. It looked like just another piece of furniture in a messy office at first. But when the group of people who wanted to buy the house began making a list of its belongings, the cabinet was locked in a strange way. A strong fingerprint lock was put on it instead. People often use this type of lock to protect government secrets or public financial records. After that, people went from being interested to being really scared. What could a Hollywood star be keeping that needed to be kept in such tight safety? It looked like there wasn't a way to find the answer. Agents for Allen quickly and clearly told anyone who asked about the cabinet in a quiet voice that it was off limits. The door would not open and no key would be given. When asked to be added to the house's goods, it was simply turned down. People looked twice just because of that. A lot of stories started going around pretty quickly. A lot of old tapes, handwritten notes, and gifts that looked like they hadn't been opened in years were talked about in whispers by people who worked in the house while Allen lived there. Some people said that Allen had written down everything about his past, including the things he saw, the deals he made, and maybe even Hollywood's best-kept secrets. Some people thought the files might contain business from the studio, fights within the company, or private letters that should not have been written down. Some people thought they could be a lot worse. The most scary thing that came out next was that an unknown former estate worker said they had seen something in the cabinet years before it was locked. Those in the lower drawers didn't have labels, but the ones in the top drawers did. The files in the upper drawer had dates and names written on them. These tapes caught people talking about things that weren't meant to be heard. But what really shocked him was seeing a part at the bottom that had been covered up by papers. When he put the mess down for a moment, he saw something that he will never forget. There was only one shot, and Tim wasn't in it. That shot was taken of someone else, and that person was facing the camera. They had a pale face and looked like they were stuck in the middle of something. I don't remember who took that shot, but I do remember that they weren't supposed to. He left as soon as he realized what he had seen. Soon after, Allen took the whole file box and moved it to a different room in the house. After that, no one could get near it again. When the house was finally ready to be sold, Allen made sure the cabinet was taken away so that no one else could look at it, but by that time, the questions were already going. That video got lost. People said that Allen had secret files, but then something else was found that made the puzzle even stronger. Allen had a close friend who had known him for a long time and remembered a strange event from years ago involving security camera footage that just vanished. Allen lived in the Hollywood Hills. His home had a high-tech security system that watched every door, hallway, and important part of the property. These cameras were once used for security to catch crooks and attackers, but Allen had become crazy about them at some point. He didn't just occasionally look at the video, he watched it all the time, even late at night when he was by himself in his office. An old friend of Allen saw that he looked unsteady when she went to the house one evening. He wouldn't say what was wrong when his friend asked. His eyes were on a movie file on his computer. He quickly turned off the laptop, locked the office, and ended the call instead. Allen erased all of his security the next day so that his friend would always remember that. Everything on the machine that was a recording, backup file, or sign of video was taken away. The company that was hired to keep an eye on things later said that the deletion wasn't a mistake. It was planned to delete all the data from the machine, so there was no way to get it back. The movie was no longer available. Everyone who heard the story asked the same thing. Why? What Allen saw on his own security cameras made him do something very bad. Some people thought it might have been a person who was following him around or breaking into his property late at night. If that was true, why wouldn't he have used the video as proof? Some people thought it was something more personal, like something at home. Could it have been a meeting he didn't want anyone to know about? A record of someone entering the locked escape room? Or maybe something worse? The Secrets of the Danger Room came out. It was still the most interesting part of the house, even as the investigation went on and stories about the estate's hidden truth spread. For years, people had talked about the locked room, but no one really knew what it was for. It seemed like a simple security measure at first, but it turned out to be more than just a walled-off area meant to keep out possible attackers. There was something much worse about the reason it was done. Someone who had worked as a builder and fixed up the house years before it was sold told a scary story about what he had found. He was meant to work on the emergency room while the building was being fixed up. He found something hidden inside the room's walls while he was there. His only job was to make sure the room worked right at first, which wasn't too hard. But when he got to work, he saw some strange marks on the walls that were hard to miss unless you looked very closely. It was brought to the contractor's attention that the marks were not meant to look good and were not part of any known design plan. They looked like they were planned like a language or code. He asked Alan about the signs, but Alan told him they were just there to keep the room safe. He didn't explain what they meant, though, but the worker thought something wasn't quite right. When he went back to the area the next day, he was shocked to find that the marks were gone. It looked like someone cleaned them up so no one would ever see them again. Stories about what the panic room was really used for kept going around for years afterward. Some said it was a safe place for Alan's most important things, while others thought it was meant to protect him from threats other than physical ones. As more details about the estate came to light, one idea that spread quickly was that the room held evidence of something bad, documents, photos, or recordings that would hurt Alan's image and could even put his job at risk. It was during the final sale check that agents were able to look in the room and find the last piece of information. Behind the fake wall, in the closed-off area that was first thought to be empty, a secret room was found. Everyone who had looked at the house over the years had missed this room. A bunch of paper boxes and sealed bags had strange notes inside them. Alan wrote some of them, but it's clear that someone else put others together. One of the most shocking things that was found was a letter that had been heavily redacted and marked classified, "Do not distribute." When it was decoded, it pointed to a bad business deal that could have hurt Alan's reputation in Hollywood. There was no doubt that this panic room had been more than just a safe for things. It held the secrets that Tim Allen had been dying to keep hidden. I still don't understand what those lies were or why they were kept so secret, at least for now. The people who got lost, the disappearance that no one saw coming. As more and more information about the estate came to light, another strange trend began to show. Some people close to Tim Allen were going missing. Most of the stories were about people who worked for celebrities and then left to work on other projects. This was a lot scary. Many of Allen's old close friends and co-workers were no longer visible to the public for no clear reason. None of these people were just hanging out. People who had been very important to him in the past, those who helped make him known and build his brand, but it looked like they weren't seen in public after they left. They were not to be found. In Allen's story, there were no press releases, goodbye notes, or public signs of leaving. They stopped being there. James Blackwell was one of the most well-known people there. He had worked for Allen for almost 10 years and was very helpful. Blackwell was in charge of setting up Allen's well-known interviews and talks and keeping his public image in good shape. And Blackwell quit his job after something strange that no one knew about. He was never seen or heard from again. People could not get in touch with him or find him on social media sites. After the fact, someone on Allen's team said that Blackwell's exit was not at all normal. James wasn't just an assistant. He was a confidant. He knew everything about Tim's personal life and business dealings. The way he was pushed out of the picture so quietly and so abruptly, it didn't sit right with me, a source said. Claire Reynolds was someone else. She used to work in public relations and helped Allen with some of his most well-known projects. Reynolds has a lot to do with how people see Allen, especially when his work was at its best in the 2000s. But after a very private fight, she turned away from everyone, and no one could say for sure where she was. Someone from a previous job reached out without giving their name, which led to the truth coming out. Some say Reynolds took time off to deal with personal matters, but Allen and Reynolds were no longer working together. A friend said she was under a lot of pressure to do things she didn't feel good about anymore. She quit with a heavy heart, but she also stopped being in the news because everyone knew too much about her. This scary trend made me think of a scary question. Did Allen shut down people who were too close to something darker than anyone thought because of his power and money? How did these people get lost? What did they have to do with the secrets that were hidden in the danger room? Once the puzzle pieces began to fit together, one thing became clear. Tim Allen's life had a story that had been kept secret for years. People who were too close to the truth were kept quiet, sometimes in ways that made them hard to find. That is some very strange information about how much money Tim Allen has. Did this sound like something that might be going on with his estate? Why or why not? Please write your thoughts in the box below. Thanks for looking. Until the next time.